everyone. This is Sarah Christensen from One Sage's View, and I'm an astrologer practicing 13 years now. And I am creating a video series around Bridgerton and the cast of Bridgerton. And my focus for these videos right now are for the co-leads of season 3, which is Nicola and Luke Newton. And in this video, I'm going to be focusing on Luke and his natal chart to the degree of the information that we have now. And I'm so excited because I did not have a lot of energy for a while, probably a year, not a year, but like a month and a half. And I was inspired by Anna from Soul Embrace Tarot. Thank you, Anna. You have inspired me to actually create something again. And, I will take it. It's so nice to feel your joy and your laughter in the sharing that you did on YouTube. And so thank you. Whenever I get re-inspired, I want to say thank you and send you so much gratitude, because when we fall into those places of nothing's inspiring me, it's so nice to pick it up again. So, and then this is a little fun, something fun to do, less serious, but it's still fun. And I find that a lot of us are enchanted by this storyline, and I got enchanted by not only the lead, the actors, Nicola and Luke, but by their storyline that had Psyche and Eros so embedded. But then when I dug into the astrology, I found out how important Psyche and Eros is in their charts. And then I was even more enchanted. I was like, oh, now I can see why it's picking up so dramatically for all of us. Because I think I have seen quite a few TikTok videos and Instagram shares in people's stories or reels that they've shared, or shorts videos that are about, why am I so enchanted by this? Why am I so caught up in this? And to me, it has a bit of the Pisces energy that Saturn and Neptune are transiting right now. But it's also the way that the lead actors, their own charts, and how their storyline gets picked up by the rest of us by the way it is in our observation of them and appreciating their art. So sometimes we have these moments where the collective really gets drawn up into something. And if you've watched the information about how many streams season 3 has had, it's stunning. It is stunning how many streams are happening around Bridgerton now in comparison to other seasons. And the storyline for this one is friends to lovers. It's not as common, maybe it's not as spicy or enticing as enemies to lovers, which is picked up in romance, genre. But I think it's fascinating to me about the archetypal presence of Psyche and Eros and how it permeates us. It awakens us, and it also has its own thing that it's evolving within the actors themselves. And some of it is conscious and some of it is not. So some of their behavior is not conscious until they watch themselves. And what's interesting is the astrology that has come out in this season, that they didn't do this in season 1 and season 2, where we have the astrology of the characters being shared by the actors. Luke and Nicola are sitting with an astrologer talking about Colin and Penelope's astrology. That was never done before. And that was part of the promo. And they were kind of like, oh, but part of the promotion also had them looking at their own, during the interviews it was shared, their chart information got shared through the interviews. One of them where it was Nicola had shared, I think in 2 or 3, but it was where we got the rising signs, because until you have a rising sign, you really can't create the right kind of where things are influencing what part of the life, right? It's the topography of the where of something happening in the life. And to know that the rising signs are mirroring, the concept of the mirror in the show, it is just incredibly extensive in that it goes the mirror of the characters in the show, but it's also the mirroring that we see of Luke and Nicola when they're on the promo tour, and then the mirror that we are engaged in a mirror through observing this. And so it's like all of this happening, and it's like you ever line up 2 mirrors and then see forever in it? It's just crazy. This isn't crazy. I love it. It's exciting and fun, but I get excited about astrology and I kind of start weaving that in. And so we're going to jump into Luke's chart and start looking at his detail, understanding his chart from what we have right now. Now it can change slightly based on his actual rising sign degree, his ascendant degree, but it's still Leo. And then in another video, I will focus in on Luke and Nicola's charts together and then flip them back and forth so you can see what one brings to the other. But by having them together, whenever they're together, there is this incredible mirroring effect that's still affecting so many people that are observing them. Okay, so let's get started on looking at Luke's chart. Okay, we're going to jump into Luke's chart. So here we go. Okay, so Luke was born February 5th, 1993, Shoreham by the Sea in England. And with that, we know that from an interview he did with Nicola, I think they were in Toronto with BuzzFeed. There was an exclusive interview done via TikTok. And in the end of that interview, there was a sharing of his chart and, his rising sign. They said Leo, but I think when Nicola was discussing it, she had jumbled a little bit about other parts, but I think we can securely say that he's a Leo rising because she kind of emphasized that twice. So there could be an adjustment based on time of his birth, like later in that day. So I just wanted to create the chart with the with the Leo rising with the ascendant there in Leo. And so that gives us the shape of the rest of the houses where the signs are across the other areas of his life. Because as you learn astrology, you come to understand that houses give us a meaning for something that's transpiring in the life around that area of life. So first house is about the self. Seventh house is about others that are really significant, other people in our lives. These are also loved ones, spouses, significant others. Could be even a boss in some kind or a business partner, but definitely significant other. Now, sometimes when someone is famous, you can also have this pull of the audience from the celebrity or the famous person from their first house to the seventh house as well. But it depends on where the ruler of those signs are. So Luke is a Leo rising, so we look for the sun, and the sun, there it is in the seventh house. So there's a magnification of self and other that's happening for Luke, but whoever the Aquarian people are in his life, he's highlighting them. And so he's magnifying them, and they are a magnet to him. He is drawn to them. He is drawn to Aquarian. Okay. I hope that helps you understand. So anyone who has a Leo rising and has the sun in the seventh house in Aquarius, there's a draw there. There's a pull. Then where's Saturn? That's also accentuating because Saturn is a ruler of Aquarius. In traditional astrology, absolutely is the ruler. In evolutionary astrology, we have it as the co-ruler. Evolutionary astrology has Aquarius ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So Uranus also something to maybe look at here. Okay, so that's very, very important because it kind of emphasizes the mirroring effect of Luke Newton with Nicola. And Nicola is getting lit up with his sun in her first house. Okay, we'll go into their synastry charts later, but I want to point that out because I think it emphasizes why we are picking up this energy so much in a grand, and we are enchanted. We are enraptured by this storyline. I think in terms of why are we feeling this way about these lead actors and why that storyline is maybe so powerful for people. I think it has to do with their charts that when they are visible, that is the Leo, when they are visible and sharing their art and their craft and how they play and how their friendship is displayed, it just gets picked up. Okay. And then it kind of captures us and we find, something in that storyline for ourselves, and there's an awakening happening. Okay. So we have that part. The other part is I like to find out, okay, where's the Psyche and where's the Eros in his chart? So Eros in his chart is in his fifth house of creativity. So anything he does creatively will have Eros in it embedded. And his Eros is at 26 degrees of Sagittarius, and his North Node, the evolutionary arc of his life intention, is North Node Sagittarius. Long distance travel for his creative work. His creative work having philosophy in it, higher learning embedded in it. Sagittarius, the freedom and the movement with that, and a little bit of wildness to it, because Sagittarius has both the man on in the centaur and the wildness of the horse below in the bottom half. So it's like man and wild, the human and the wildness. So that is in there. So Eros in Sagittarius Sagittarius is also lighting up the Uranus in Nicola's chart. So another accentuation of their combination. We'll go into that in the synastry, but I want to point that out. So that's Eros, the god of love. And then, wow, look at here, in the fourth house, in Luke's fourth house, we have the Scorpio, the sign of Scorpio, which is deep bonds. Like Scorpio wants to renew itself through osmosis. I mean, it's completely merging with the other. And from that merging together, that bond, deep bond, it's renewing itself. But there's almost like Scorpio is death also. So it's like a death of the self, the death of the ego to eventually rise back up and become new. That's the eagle of Scorpio, or the phoenix, coming out of that. But there's always some kind of death of the self that comes in and merges. And so Scorpio energy will have that within it. So with his psyche in Scorpio, what kind of death and rebirth process does he go through in his own life? It's in fourth house. So he has some kind of storyline related to some experience with death. Could be a family member. And I do believe he did experience that at the emergence of his career, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is like, it goes beyond the family. It is deep in the roots of his heritage, deep in his own DNA, right? This is deep in his psyche, and the psyche then gets played out in storylines, okay? It comes out through his art because of Eros and Psyche in relationship. But Eros and Psyche in his chart are side by side in signs. And so Eros and Psyche are not in the same position as they are in Nicola's chart. So I think Nicola's chart with the opposition of Eros and Psyche is actually giving us that I see you, you see me, and we have a relationship of seeing each other, and we're kind of figuring that out. And I think that's what's captured us. It's through Nicola, but he plays a key role, okay? So his key role is the desire nature. But there's, in his own experience of it, he might not be able to see something because they're in a version when they're side by side in that they can't see each other, okay? He cannot see that. So the way he might see something is through the fire, through the desire, because Eros gets picked up by being in fire, so it can be picked up by the Leo of his ascendant, but it has to come through the mirror of someone else being able to see that, okay? So to me, that desire, the love that is portrayed by that archetype, which is capturing, right? This is the god of love. And Eros was feared to a degree when it went from the Greek to the Romans. The Romans took Eros as from the teenager perspective that the Greek had, the adolescent, it was almost like a teenager, like an adolescent Eros. It was very powerful, very, very powerful. The power of love like that just consumes you. And then the passion of that, all of the stuff in that archetype. And then the Romans made it into an infant, and then we get Cupido. So the Romans decreased like that intensity by making Eros a little baby cherub. So it maybe has been as feared, but it was still as powerful, right? So there's something to be considered in that myth, and then the movement of that shape of the archetype from one shape to another shape. Okay, there's something to that. With Psyche in Scorpio, reminds me of Psyche in the myth, because in Nicola's chart, she has Psyche in Virgo. And to me, it reminds me of Psyche's task that Aphrodite has sent her on, where she's sorting the seeds, and how impossible that task would be. And what I think is interesting also in that myth is that the ants emerge to then take over the seed sorting. So it's like something beyond her in nature, in the natural world, is going to help her resolve the situation, solve the task, so she can move on in her process of her journey. So to me, the archetype of Psyche, she has these different tasks, but it's almost like by looking at it a little closer, you can go, oh, Psyche is getting supported by something beyond her, larger than her, out of this realm, but connected to the natural world that helps her and supports her and helps her move from one thing to the next thing. That's what I get out of the archetype. Maybe you get something else, but I kind of find that interesting how by just doing maybe simple mundane task, sorting the seeds, just doing the thing, but it's impossible in the Saturn timeline that was given to accomplish a task over the night, that something else bigger, something more magnificent, omniscient helps her, and that's the natural world. And so I think there's something really important in that to take into consideration here from a Nicola standpoint. So her career, she had an enduring process to get to Dairy Girls, so first it was like Jess and Joe Forever, her play that enabled her to get an agent, which then got her Dairy Girls. And then she accomplished that and was just phenomenal in that. And then because of Dairy Girls, got the role of Penelope in Bridgerton. So it's like something bigger is helping to achieve the task, but you might not be able to see it consciously. And I think that's a gift for all of us to kind of take into consideration. In Luke's chart, Luke also had like a progressive career, but he got gigs right out of like 18, 19 years old when he got The Cut. Interesting that little show that he did called The Cut, that's his first kind of acting. And that then he had the Disney show, The Lodge or something like that. And he had other like a movie part, I think in Lake Placid or something like that. Anyway, but Bridgerton was really his breakout role in a bigger way, right? I mean, people knew him from The Lodge. And I think some people who were a fan of him from The Lodge watched him go over to Bridgerton and then became fans of Bridgerton. So there's that. But I think he became more globally known and different ages of people, different demographics of people for his role in Bridgerton. And now he's blown up and he's had his glow up because what we know about Bridgerton is the glow up that happens to the male leads, because it's all about the female gaze, because these are romance books that have been brought to the screen through Shonda Rhimes, picking up on the books written by Julia Quinn. So Colin Bridgerton got his glow up from season 2 to season 3. And now we got the story of Penelope and Colin. And so Luke himself had to go through the process of physical training in 22 and 23 to achieve the glow up. So he personally had to go through some personal physical transformation. Physical is sometimes the moon. Physical is definitely the ascendant. So this is why I think his ascendant sits very near 1 and 2, maybe 3 degrees of of Leo, because Pluto by opposition would then be opposing his ascendant, really pushing him for that. You must transform, right? Like you have to. It's a Saturn thing. You have to put in the discipline. You have to do the thing for you to achieve this thing, to do the work, Saturn, that you intended to do, to play the part of the co-lead. So that's in his astrology. That's why I think his astrology ascendant is in that first few degrees of Aquarius. Again, I could be wrong, but that's my hunch. Okay, what else do I want to point out? Psyche in Scorpio is square. It's in a different, so Scorpio is a fixed sign. So Leo is a fixed sign, Aquarius is a fixed sign, and Taurus is a fixed sign. So with Scorpio sitting in the 4th house, it's angular. So the Psyche is a really important piece of his DNA, and transformation is massive as it pertains to him and his own desire nature. So by transforming himself, he has Pluto in Scorpio, which is really massive, intense Scorpio energy. It is just the depths of the depths, and especially in the 4th house. It could be the nightmare, right? But for transformation, it is definitely speaking to his own whole life transformation. Family's involved, so his family is such a significant part of his transformation, and his bonds with his family, his very significant, close bonds with his family. His mom is in the arts in Brighton. His 2 aunts are also important in his life, and they are also in the arts in, I think, West End London theater world. I believe they were significant for him. And so family very much. And so a part of his career notes, if you want to take a look at his career, is when they gathered to watch Bridgerton's season 1 in 2020 on Christmas Day, his family gathered, and from that family gathering, some of them got sick with COVID. I do believe, if I've read my information correctly online. And from that event, his grandfather got very sick, and then he had to go into care. And I think they couldn't go see him because we couldn't go see our family members during that period of time. And that was in January of 2021. And sadly, his grandfather perished the day after he turned, I think, 29. Let me just double check. That was 21. So yeah, so his storyline is very similar storyline to Nicola, in that they had this loss of a Saturn figure. For Luke, it was his grandfather, and for Nicola, it was her actual father. Nicola lost her father 5 days before she got dairy. So it's like this precursor of this karmic moment, almost with a passing, a grief, a loss, massive loss at the beginnings of their careers, where that right before they're breaking out in a big way. So in 2021, he turned 28, and 28 is smack right in the context of your Saturn return. And of course, Saturn was returning there, and that would be a part of his Saturn return journey. So, but season 1, you know, he's part of the cast, but he's not the lead. His lead doesn't come until season 3, but in the books, they were in the book 4. So Shonda and Julia Quinn jumped them to season 3. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting because of the timing that's in their charts. The Pluto in Aquarius, and how that is in Nicola's chart, but also how it's in Luke's chart, in the transformation that's taking place not only for them individually, and their career is just going to skyrocket from that, but also our observation and awareness of them and what it awakens within us collectively. Because with Pluto in Aquarius, it is a collective awakening thing, and we're doing it through media and technology. And a lot of people are creating things creatively just as they participate and have fun with it too. But there's another thing going on as it pertains to Psyche and Eros. What is Psyche in our own self, and what is Eros in our own self, and how this myth informs us about ourselves at this point in time, and where we are collectively, maybe awakening something brand new. It's evolving. We're evolving. Everything is evolving. Even the astrology will evolve too. So I think that's important to point out. But the Pluto in his natal chart, anyone born with Pluto and Scorpio has such an intense thing of transformation somewhere in their life, right? So a death in a family member could be massively transformational for Luke, but it's more it's the arc going throughout the entire life, but it's where Pluto will transit over through time. So when Pluto eventually gets to 25 degrees of Aquarius, which is probably 22 years in the future, 21, 22, somewhere in there, 22 years in the future, we're going to see that Pluto square Pluto in Luke's experience, right? From a transit. But right now it is opposite his ascendant. And I do believe that that's true. Also, it's just going to be as Pluto progresses through his 7th house by transit, it really picks up palace. So he may have a future, creative piece, a film or a series that he's involved in that picks up like the archetype of Pallas Athena. And Pallas Athena is a feminine archetype. It's about wisdom. It's about strategy. So we may see him have a relationship with someone like that in a future piece of creative that he has. Now, he also picks up on his own relationships as someone being like a Pallas Athena, like that strategist, strong feminine embodiment of that, right? The feminine in its wisdom, the feminine in its strategic insight. And in Aquarius is I'm not going to do it like anyone else. I'm beyond the status quo of people. I will be individually who I am and unique in all my glory, right? That would be like that. So he would be in relation to someone like that, either actually in his real life or on film that we will see. But that will come in time. I think that could be something that he does in the next 5 years. Okay. It's definitely a constant within relationships because that's what he picks up on, because you pick up on the things in the 7th house and they get reflected back to you on purpose. There's a purpose to it. You need to see this from someone else's giving it to you. The sun being in the 7th house, it's 16 degrees. Now in Nicola's video, I discussed the prominence of 16 because if down here you can see that Psyche is indexed via the number 16, and that's where when we plug it into finding that in astro.com or other astrology, that's the number. So Psyche is connected to the number 16, which in the tarot I believe is the tower. I believe so. So to me, it's an awakening. There is something awakening not only in them, not only in his observing someone else and how they light up for him, and then how they give that back to him, and then how he relates to that, and we see that. But then it's an awakening because it's awakening him. It's awakening awakening that other person, because it's like a mirroring effect. And then how, if we're observing them in mass, which we are collectively in large volume of numbers through the internet, through social media, through their work, through their interviews, through their promotions, we're getting that as well. So I think that's fascinating. And if I recall in the, well, we'll get that into another chart. Okay. Also, another thing that's getting picked up is this sun can represent the co-lead actor, which in his case would be like Nicola. And she's very Aquarian. So that picks up her Aquarian ascendant. But she's a sun in Capricorn. And what's interesting about this incredible pickup and unbelievable like magnetism to the storyline is her sun is at 18 degrees of Capricorn. And so his conjunction of Uranus and Neptune, which he doesn't have control of this. This is like transpersonal planets, but they pick up things and they make it bigger, or they emphasize it. And it's in his sixth house of, I would say sixth house is, it can be like it's the other person's subconscious mind. And isn't Nicola's sun in her 12th house of her unconscious mind? So it's kind of picking up her sun and it's magnifying it through the art of acting it out, and then how we pick it up. So we're picking it, it's just how it's picked up. But Neptune is like how something is brought down from the heavens and made into some kind of the imagination or the genius brought down to earth in some way, right? So the genius in what they portray through the work, and they have to play off of each other, right? That's so important with how the actors can create their characters, of how they think about them so thoroughly. And I know that Nicola, and how she's described about how she goes about, giving shape to her characters, is finding their voice. She has so much going on about the voice, finding their voice, and how she manipulates the voice to give the character shape. So in the first season, how she had a higher pitch for Penelope, and then it kind of got lower as she matured and became more embodied into her empowerment as Lady Whistledown, and bringing her two halves of self together in season 3. I think it's fascinating that Luke's chart emphasizes Nicola's sun. And so he does it through the work, right? The creative work, but it's kind of out of the unconscious mind of the other, right? And we're picking up on that. And Uranus just explodes that shape of that thing that the traditional, and isn't it iconic that degree of her sun and his transpersonal planets, they're within a degree. So it's really potent. And so Uranus just explodes it. So our old ideas of how things should be shaped and the status of something. And if you look at the Bridgerton ensemble, it's very much an ensemble. So it's very Aquarian. It's about the ensemble. It's not just the individual. It's about the ensemble cast. And it's taking Regency era, flipping it on its head. And the creators who have taken Julia Quinn's first, creative piece, and then tilting it on its head and writing in the show different, some people like the differences. Some people want the book, displayed on the screen, but they get parts of it, right? But it's how it turns it completely around into some completely different piece of art that we're enjoying. We're enjoying a lot of people are enjoying it. So that is definitely embedded in Luke's chart and how that comes out through the work, sixth house, and it's what he's in service to. So through his relationship with a co-star, he is igniting something that he can give to the public. But it's very transpersonal. It gets picked up on. And because he has Mercury in Aquarius, that to me is like the anxiety that comes from all that energy pulled back towards him, right? Like facing him. It's like, oh, too much. When he's in the crowd and he can feel it, right? Massive. And we can see how they, connected with you physically by holding hands to maybe give comfort there, right? So that's a possibility. I don't know if that's absolutely true, but it sure seems like it in a few scenes where we can visibly see the discomfort that Luke is showing in the public eye when they're at the premieres, and how Nicola has so much earth, especially her Taurus moon, which would be absolutely the grounding thing that could bring that down and center him, right? So that's something, and he may miss that when he is in other shows. I think we're going to see that in other press, there's still a nervousness, and without the presence of Nicola, there's not as much groundedness to it. Okay. I think that's a possibility because, when we're looking at people's charts, I'm like, how much earth do they have to bring it down into reality and feel grounded? He doesn't have a lot that grounds him, right? It's fire from the ascendant, but that is like very cerebral coming from other people. So very mind towards him. And then emotionally, he's feeling it underneath everything. He's feeling in the subconscious mind. The moon is up there. The moon is close to the ascendant. So his ability to pull in the emotions comes between the trine of I believe the trine of the Psyche and Pluto in Scorpio getting pulled out from there to his moon, which is pretty close. I bet you it's pretty close to his ascendant for him to have that ability to pull that through. His Mars is also very sensitive in the 12th house, so it's pulling through the moon as well. So his Mars, which is his passion, comes through the emotion. We see when he does an emotional scene, it is like, oh my God. Right? When he nails the scene, I think there's one where he's crying. I think that was a real emotion that he was like, he was supposed to be angry and it was emotional and right? And then his desire nature, on his face, which is that moon so close to his ascendant, through his interaction with his co-lead Nicola, which in that part, when they're displaying kind of the love on his face, the desire, the passion, being enraptured, caught up in it. It's beautifully done. And he has such an expressive face. So his work as an actor is going to be interesting to see how that operates with other leads. Right? That's going to be fascinating to see, because if it's Aquarian lead that's not a female, what is it going to portray? Right? Is it going to be the fear, the horror? I think he's already been in a horror film. Wasn't that so there's a horror underneath. His Mercury is square to his Pluto. So he may have a desire to actually do some parts that have a dark tone to them because of that. He's going to work that out. And I'd want to be an actor who works that out on the screen and not in real life. Just going to say that. But to also have the world, after watching Bridgerton season 3 carriage scene, talk about his two fingers. I mean, oh my God, Pluto square Mercury. Hello. Oh my gosh. It's just crazy, right? And that's all through technology that we're observing that's the Aquarius. Amazing. We all pick up on that, right? But it's got that tonality to it. But his Mars in Cancer is also got it's even embedded in the storyline. And goodness, I kind of wonder if it's just how things show up. But sometimes people do know their charts, but I don't think Julia Quinn knows his chart. They created a chart for Colin, and Colin Bridgerton's chart is a Sag rising. That would put Scorpio in the 12th house for Colin Bridgerton. But I think it's the water that's in that subconscious part of his actual chart, Luke Newton, that is the protector. So he wants, and it's such a big part of the storyline, he's called into action, Mars, by his instinct to protect. Yeah, so that's Cancer, Mars and Cancer. Now, Luke was born with the Mars retrograde, so that's going to focus that Mars onto himself at first, but at some point that Mars by progression will go direct. So after he was born, February 5th of 1993, some days, I think after he was born, I don't have that, it's in the progress chart, but it would have been where it went direct. And when that went direct in his chart, there would have been a significant experience about maybe protecting on something and, calling in his instinct, and maybe towards someone like the mother or something like that. Or he could have had that drawn out by being a kid who's watching some kind of art at the theater, and that's maybe picking up, and he's getting that in that kind of moment, like because I believe his aunts were a part of the theater scene, and he was participating by being in the audience at a very young age, observing that. And his father was also someone who was a singer and had some notoriety for winning a contest, I think in 1995, and that's his son, Leo. So he's very tuned into his father as well. Okay, so his father inspired him. His first mirror of a Saturn figure, authority. So you have kind of that as well in his chart. Okay, another point is, I talked about Eros, 26 of Sagittarius for Luke on his North Node. So then we want to take a look at, he also has the vertex, and the vertex is like another angle. It's very strong, very connections by fate, connections by destiny, right? So that's very marked in connection to Nicola's chart. And it's through his creative work. And so his creative is Sag, so it's Jupiter, and Jupiter in his chart is in Libra, and that's about relationships and communication, because third house and his relationship with his sibling is important. His extended family, that's also third house. His local community, very important as well. It's very important about it for him. That's where he is, rises. So it's something coming from the past forward. But Venus is the ruler of that of the Libra, that's the Jupiter. So they're opposite signs, so they can see each other. Like Venus they're not exactly opposite. It's more like the Jupiter is opposite Amor, 12 of Aries, and I believe his midheaven is probably within that still. Based on if he's born later, it's gonna click later. Yeah, so it would move. Yeah, so it could be that he has a Pisces midheaven. I'm going to say that because he loves to sing. I'm going to say that. That's a potential. But anyway, it could still be in Aries. So I kind of take that loosely about the midheaven for him. But what I want to point out is the family members and how they influenced him in his desire for the stage and the communication. So third house is also siblings, because he does have a sister, but it's like extended family as well, and your local community, those kinds of things. But third house is also where we pick up on some of our communication style, and the ruler of that, which is Aries, could be, sharing what he loves and how he communicates that. But he has, when I went back to the nodes, because the nodes are the arc of the life. So the North Node saying he's going to lean towards the creative work, because that gives him shape for understanding like how he's going to expand through relationships like this, right? So, well, and then we take that and we look at the South Node, because the South Node tells us where he's come from, who was Luke in past life. He was the Mercury, and that means he faced something at a young age, which was like a nightmare from others, right? So that's Mercury square Pluto. That could be facing death head on, being challenged by death, and then the anxiety that comes after that, be the fear. And so a collective group of people, like a mob, could have been in something that was like that. And so that is translating to, when he's in crowds, could also give him that fear, right? So I could understand that strength of that. So what does the soul do? It says, I'm going to put you back in a situation in this you're picking kind of as a soul. I'm going to evolve this thing where I got stuck before. And you have to be put back in similar themes to evolve them. And so that Mercury to evolve has the challenge of understanding other people. So he most definitely has the ability to pick up the other energy. I think he mentioned in an interview that he's, has the psychic ability. Yeah, everybody does. But he probably picks up energy on the mind, the collective mind, like a group, like a mobs. Think about the flash mobs, those dance, but think of an angry mob, how he could pick up on that and how it might turn dark. That's what the fear is there, right? And so the soul's like, well, I'm going to put you back in the similar space, and you're going to evolve that thing. You're going to move beyond it. Because if you have right connection with people, certain relationships, that's going to help you navigate it, right? So then that helps you understand relationships, that understands yourself in relationships, that helps you understand yourself, and it helps you understand your mind. So he's giving us an understanding of the same thing when we explore his astrology. Now, we will have way more insight if we have an exact time. So there's that. So here's another key to that theme. I just was pulling on that thread. Chiron in Leo is saying the same thing that I just said, in terms of he has a wound about his visibility in the public. And what happens when he's caught up in that mind of the group mind, and because there's a fear, here it is, it's a T-bone, T-square of Pluto, Psyche, square Sun, Saturn, and Mercury. So Chiron is he's the wounded healer as it pertains to this. He doesn't even, maybe sure of it, he doesn't even recognize that yet. Maybe in time, because he just got introduced to astrology basically through this work he's done. So as far as I know from an interview, one of the first times he looked at his astrology chart was when he was in Australia with Nicola pointing it out. So there's something that can emerge over time on his own, through his own soul awareness of this, because everyone has their own journey, but you're participating with something bigger. We're all participating in something together collectively as well. So there, you're an individual in a whole. So how are you in the whole of something when you're not being your authentic self? When are you off center? What is that, the ripple effect of being off center, off your course, not we have to own like what our fear is, otherwise we project it and we say it's you, when really it's just the thing that's coming up is to show that's within us. Now there are different, this gets into belief systems a bit, so I'm going to say that but there is this kind of like self and other concept that is really important here in this expanding the view of Luke and Nicola, self and other, and the impact of when the two come together and the incredible mirroring effect that happens, and then how that has affected millions of people, right? In their case. For us individually, we might have a smaller sphere, but it's still the same concept. We have our small little universes that we have, right? So there's something to that. So that south node is also something that's saying it's air, Gemini. So there's a pull on his Mercury, his mind, his experience with other people, how they befriend him. Okay. So there's like, I like being a little bit different than the status quo. Aquarius Mercury will be open to real connection with other people that's not of the status quo. It's not a Capricorn. It is very much different. So I wouldn't be surprised if he floats very easily between friends of heterosexual friends and those who are in the LGBTQ sphere. Very easily he can move between those. So he would definitely have friends that are there, and he's very accepting of that, and that's part of it, that evolutionary journey for him. But that's an easy flow for him because air, that's not that hard of a concept for him to like, yeah, I could be fluid with that myself. I might pick up on something that some people may think that I am that, but am I? I mean, that's not for me to say here or there, but I think he would be comfortable moving through friends and having connections with people, deep friendships that would be like that, right? Because our south node is something we're very comfortable with. There you go. Yeah, and I know that he is connected with, I think, Youngblood. Is that the musician, the artist? I like his music too. Good stuff. And he's very, very keen on the mental health awareness. I like him. I like how he represents himself publicly. That's just my 2 cents. And okay, so I've covered that south node a bit, but the south node definitely has the quality of having the trine between relationships of Libra because of the Jupiter, that's air, and all that air of Aquarius in his 7th house. So Luke Newton will have a significant amount of relationships that he has. He will have a lot of friends. Aquarians always do, but it will be that they're reflecting something back for him as well, that he is, it lights him up. That's good. It inspires him. That's good. It brings it to his artistry as an actor, and maybe what he will sing and use his voice for. So that's good. But there is this deep Scorpio psyche in Scorpio. It's like being in the underworld. Some of his storylines will take us into that underworld place. This is like Psyche in the myth that's in the underworld. And I believe in that part of the myth, she was to take biscuits or something to feed the dog, the double-headed dog. The guard dog at the gate of Hades. So she's supposed to have one for when she goes in and meets with Persephone, and to have another one when she comes out so she can get out of there. So she has that in that storyline. I think she's bringing the golden fleece pieces she's to gather the golden fleeces. I know that, but I can't remember if that's the part that she goes into the underworld. Anyway, Luke's participation in the whole Psyche and Eros is going into the underworld. You accept going into the underworld is going into your shadow, going into the part of your own psyche that takes you into the place of, oh, that's the part of myself I don't like. That's the part of myself I don't love, right? Or that's the part that I can't see, but other people see, and that I get labeled as, or something like that. So the shadow is, sometimes we have it visible to us, sometimes it's operating and we can't see it. But the more we dive into understanding ourselves through astrology, we can get to that, and we can sift through that and refine things that we have as our deepest fear, our deepest nightmare and then emerge from that. Now, I think it takes time. It's not like this is not an overnight thing. It's just displayed for us in the storyline through Colin Bridgerton's own journey of how he shows up, and Penelope, as Lady Whistledown, calls him out in that story. Are you really that? Who really are you? Because she can see through his bullshit, that he is portraying a part that he thinks he has to play. He's put on a mask to show up how he thinks society will accept him. But I think in the storyline, eventually that facade crumbles, right? When he can be his authentic self with Penelope. So this storyline is really good for us to explore and understand these themes, but his participation helps us understand Psyche is going into the underworld for a purpose, and Aphrodite has sent her there. It's one of her tasks, right? One of the tasks is go into the underworld. Where's your fear? Hers is like connected to, the Psyche is connected to beauty, because doesn't she get a little in the Pandora's box thing, a little thing of Persephone around beauty? And it's like, don't open the box. But then when she emerges, she opens the box. But that is in this whole storyline. So it's like, there's so many layers and you could just keep going layers and layers and layers. So much undressing to do. My goodness. Anyway, I'm fascinated by the archetypes. I just love it. And it helps people like be introduced to something, to awaken to something. Okay, so cover that a lot. Let's go to Venus. We haven't covered his Venus yet. And Venus is so important. It's in his 9th house. Venus in the 9th house is going to go on some, trip around the world. And we're going to see some instinct coming out of his feminine side. Okay. His Venus is connected absolutely to Nicola's Mars. So Nicola, when she uses her instincts to speak, and sometimes she's disruptive. Okay. Yeah. She's just that fireball of energy. And she's got Uranus in a fire sign as well. So it's just vibing, but it's her Mars who is instinctual, that has also the comedic timing that Nicola has. But when she does accents that she has worked on for her character, and that connects up even when she's in character or when she's just doing accents for fun, Luke Newton kind of lights up because he loves that. That's connecting to his Venus and that playfulness, and it's fun. Now, there's also the potential, I believe, between his Venus and Antonia, but in a different way. Okay. So I'll go into that later, but I think it's, to kind of understand the Psyche and Eros that we get through these actors, it's kind of good to point out for the leads, the co-leads, Nicola and Newton, how that shows up. His Venus also is likely trying to his ascendant, and that's why he picks up so dynamically, and that's an easy flow for him to portray in a mask to the world. So acting in a role that's then produced for us and given to us, and also how he shows up in the promoters when he's going around the globe. Okay, so we will actually see how his Venus actually plays out with other people in the future when he does other parts. So I think I would be interested in another point in time when he does another interesting piece of work. I haven't gone back and looked at the lodge. I think there's something very important about being past his Saturn return for some of these things to be turned on. And I also think he's 31 right now. So this is 30. He was filming most of that stuff when he was 30 and 29. Yeah, because this is he's 31. So we're up here in the 8th house from a annual perfection year. So Jupiter is actually very prominent in his life right now. So it's all about relationships. How are your relationships? And him going around the world and local and around the world. Okay. And that definitely brings in the Venus, right? So, but when he turns 32, it turns on his 9th house of Aries. So then we'll see stuff that's more Mars as a protector, or passive aggressive. Okay. A piece of work that may have that in it. So it depends on if he plays it in a bold protector mode or if he plays it in the other undercurrent, right? So it depends on what part he will play. I'm really curious. That's when, so 31, 32, 33. So when he's 33, whatever comes out when he's 33 will have an interesting dynamic again because that's Taurus in his 10th house, and that will pull in Venus again, and he will have another maybe connection to someone. And I believe that could be when Bridgerton 4 comes out, but there may be some other piece of work that also comes out at the same time that he will have a part being visible there. We are seeing kind of right now the overlay of that. It's his career house having Venus highlighted from all his work in the fashion industry around beauty. That's just now in his chart because it's his 10th house, right? 10th house Taurus, beauty, fashion, those things. And that's also Libra, his relationship to those fashion houses. Yeah. Okay. So Venus, very interesting. Now in his chart, Venus is also square to Mars. Venus is also square to Juno. So there's this more dynamic square. So squares are like Mars. They have a challenge to them. They have an obstacle to integrate. My master teacher says the whole point of astrology is for us to understand how to integrate these things into ourselves when they are more challenging. So when we have a square, that's the Mars. You have to work the muscle to actually integrate the thing and acknowledge, and that, over time you will see someone own or become more of the life potential. It's like becoming the tree that you always had in the seed of who you are, right? His Mars and Venus have that square. So he will have this ongoing, this is part of a lesson he's also learning, because when you have a square like that, you're learning about these dynamics between relationships when he's relating to someone from a foreign place. That's Venus is in a 9th house. So someone from a different country is likely his love, right? So, and the Mars as a protector, Mars as a emotional, it's a sensitive, very sensitive Mars desire emotionally, okay? Mars trine anything kind of to the 4th, it does to the 4th house and to the 8th house. So but yeah, I think that's the strongest one I look at. Yeah. If we have a square also with like maybe the midheaven, yeah. Again, a midheaven can move some degrees. I don't know how exact that is, but definitely the asteroid Amor is square also to his Mars. So kind of the love stories that he will have in life, and then also how things come out in life when he's traveling. And what he is attracted to, his desire nature, especially when he's not in England, but maybe when he's in another location. Because once we have his actual time of birth, then you can build a grid of where his Venus is across the planet Earth and find out where that kind of maps up. And also countries where Venus is prominent, like Italy. Italy is a very Venusian country. I don't know what Brazil's chart is, especially Sao Paulo, but I bet you that there's a strong influence of Venus, Taurus, Scorpio. But anyway, we'll look into that later. I think I've covered every point. Yeah, I think I have. So we get a sense that Luke it's important that he is the co-lead, reflecting back to Nicola, but he has his own psyche that he is introducing us to, and his own Eros that gets ignited in the relationship and the partnership. Another thing I want to point out, which will be in the synastry chart, is that his Jupiter, which is very much a part of what he's living, because he's at 31 years old right now, he's Pisces right now, is Jupiter, and Jupiter is within 2 degrees of Nicola's south node. So his own Jupiter about relationships is connected to her south node. So these two have been together in another time and place, and they're working something out and kind of on a big stage. Okay. Some of it is for us collectively. Yes. But sometimes it has to be cut from us so they can actually work out whatever they're working out. We may have that come through. There might be some visibility to the actual and the real at some point. I think we'll see some other things in season 4 in 2 years. And I think that's really significant how things will play out in his Venus. Yeah. So I hope you have enjoyed this. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts of your own based on what I'm sharing, please let me know. I love to hear your comments. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining me on this one. The next video I'm going to do is going to bring in progressions and then his connection to the event. So we're going to look at transits from the premieres that he had, what it was in his chart versus what we had for Nicola, because there's different little things that come through in each little moment that we're witnessing. And there's one for Luke, and there's one perception for that we receive, our perception with them in those moments, and what it helps for us collectively pick up on, because that's the Aquarian energy, the collective group consciousness. So that'll be my next thing. I want to talk about his progressions and then what that means. Progressions are very important for things that are happening within them on almost like another level of understanding, and how things can get stronger in their life as things exact by progression, and then we're going to talk about the transits around the premieres, okay, and the red carpet, and the releases. So look forward to that. And if you're interested in your own astrology, learning about Psyche and Eros in your own chart, you're welcome to contact me. I'm at onesagesview.com, and I look forward to talking with you and sharing more astrology with you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.